we do a serious one.
Yeah.
So joining you live from the World Championship 2023 in Barcelona, the Living Legend podcast.
This episode of the Living Legends podcast is brought to you by the Banished Zone in Wernersville, Pennsylvania. More than just a hobby store, but a hub for community building and fostering the love of gaming in all of its forms. Whether you're an avid card gamer, a strategic board game aficionado, or a lover of miniature gaming, they have something for everyone. And their carefully curated collection boasts a wide range of games, ensuring that you'll find the perfect fit for your gaming preferences. They only opened their store in June 2023, but already have been fostering a fantastic community. Make sure you visit their store, thebanishzone.com, and use the affiliate code LIVING10LEGENDS for 10% off one order per customer. Make sure you make the most out of it, and stay banished. That American accent is killing me. Anyway, let's get back to the pod.
Anyway,
Nice.
I was going to ask you what you thought about the spoilers, but we should definitely wait to get into the actual podcast before we talk about that.
Well, speaking of getting into it, we are recording now, so we could just jump straight in if you want to do it.
Oh, well then, perfect. Hello.
There we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Living Legends podcast.
Absolutely.
I am your host for today. I am Bill from the Spike Feeders and from the Living Legends podcast.
Let's not forget.
Yes, and joining me today, unfortunately, well, I mean, not unfortunately, because it's still Azz.
Well, that is unfortunately.
I was gonna say we're missing one of the two co-hosts.
That's right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Kel is a bit under the weather, so he's just sitting out, which is totally fine. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's taken him out. So thoughts and prayers and best wishes and get well soons to Kel.
Absolutely.
But with that being said, joining me today is Azz from Go Again Gaming.
Yes, absolutely. 1/3 Living Legends podcast. Shame you can't be here, Kel, because I know you would be very excited to, as you can see on the screen here, actually. Well, Bill, you can't see it, but we've got a nice picture of Nu. I think that's how you pronounce her name. But yeah, Kel definitely approves of this character, and it's a shame we can't get his thoughts today. But hopefully, when you, dear listener, and Kel, you're listening to this back, hopefully you enjoy our speculations, as we call them, on these cards
Yeah.
and on these characters. So yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Yeah, there's some really, really crazy stuff that has been revealed in just the past week. We went from having almost nothing to talk about to having quite a few things. Like, we have 5 cards and like things on the cards that require additional speculation. We're starting to get some information about what part the Mistveil is going to look like. So I'm really excited to chat about it with you today.
Gotcha.
I think it's going to be really good. But I guess first and foremost, do you have anything for your week in Fab?
Yeah, I mean, the League That Means Nothing is still going on. And before we actually get into that and what you might have as well, if anything, just want to mention the sponsor for this episode is, yet again, the Banished Zone, or the Banished Zone, I should say. And their logo is just beneath us here, between Living Legends and Flesh and Blood. Positioned nice and central there. And I'm going to flash up the poster that they sent us to talk about. So I'm going to flash that up right now, and I'm just going to read it off as to what's going on before we carry on with the episode. So as you can see it now, it's the Flesh and Blood 1K event that they're putting on. This is going to be on Saturday, April the 6th, 2024. And it says, prep for this ProQuest season and win dollars and some cool raffle prizes. So this is April the 6th, and that's going to be the Banished Zone, and they're out of Pennsylvania. I can't remember precisely where, but if you go to banishzone.com, you'll be able to find it. Entry fee is $35. Store opens at 10 a.m. Registration ends at 11, and the first round is at 11:30. And it's Swiss rounds based on attendance with a cut to a top 8. And that's obviously in celebration of the ProQuest season and heavy hitters. And of course, they've still got a lot of heavy hitters as well available for purchase on the website. So if you go over today, you'll be able to get some boxes still if you haven't got any. And there's also a raffle going on as well for a pair of cold foil mandible claws as well.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, which are all the rage at the moment because KO was the most represented hero at Pro Tour recently, which we can touch on a little bit because obviously that ended already. It's been and gone, Pro Tour LA. But yeah, that tickets are available on banishzone.com. So thank you very much to the Banish Zone for sponsoring another episode of the podcast. And yeah, we hope to see you to do it all over again very, very soon. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that before we go into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, definitely a very big thank you to the fine people at the Banish Zone for working with us once again.
Yeah.
And just to pile on, they are in Wernersville, Pennsylvania.
Wernersville. Nice.
Which, yeah, it's kind of convenient that the American of the podcast is away for today when we were trying to figure out where it is. Because unfortunately, as a Canadian, I'm also just really bad at geography.
That's right. We've got the Commonwealth today, unfortunately. No USA today. Yeah. But yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, as I mentioned, the League That Means Nothing is still carrying on. We're into week 3 now, and that's basically why I can't play what we were speaking about earlier before the podcast, which is obviously the Dragon's Dogma download, which I have done, but haven't been able to play it because this is taking away a lot of my creative sort of free time, and I'd rather put flesh and blood content, which is ultimately means nothing, out into the wild because people having a lot of fun with it. And I'm me and my mate casted a few games this week and still need to tie up the other games, but yeah, you can speak for it. It's a lot of fun. People seem to be having fun, so it's just good to have that consistent content on the channel. So
yeah, no, it's a really good time, and honestly, big props to you for setting it up, and it seems to be something that a lot of people are having a lot of fun with. I mean, even I am, even though I'm not a competitor. Like I've been watching the games, and obviously I was able to cast a few of them as well with my good buddy Jay. Shout out Banish. Oh fuck, not.
I love it.
We don't swear on this podcast.
We have now. When it's Bill and Az, it just goes out the window.
Zen State Fab. He's just such a good friend of mine. I felt bad for forgetting his tag. But yeah, Zen State Fab. That's my buddy Jay, and we were able to cast some games for the League That Means Nothing, which was a ton of fun. We were able to do some casting that also meant nothing.
Ultimately, yeah,
which was a phenomenal time, and yeah, so big shout out to Az for setting that up. It's a really big undertaking, but
yeah, I mean, I do pride myself on my organisational skills, despite the chaos that you've obviously witnessed. I do pride myself on some organisational skills and getting things done when it needs to be done. But yeah, so shout out to Zen State as well. He's recently hit 500 subscribers on his YouTube channel, so he put out a video today. I haven't watched it yet, but I saw the thumbnail. So yeah, congratulations to Jay for doing that. It's always hard starting a channel and then getting those milestones, but when you get them, it's a nice feeling. So fair play. Yeah, absolutely. He actually has like such a nice setup as well for like his audio visual equipment. He has a very professional setup, and that has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I just wanted to shout that out. Like when I went over to do the casting with him, we were set up at his kitchen table, and yeah, he had like a green screen. He had like a full he had like an AV switcher for different camera angles and stuff. Like it immediately better than anything that I have access to. So absolutely. Like I bought a ring light and a stand off of Amazon. And that's after
me
using notepads for God knows how long to illuminate your face.
Yeah, I was turning my monitors into light boxes by just opening up blank notepad documents.
Classic.
Just to peek behind the curtain. But yeah, anyway, without further ado, that's we're already in the weeds. It's going to be great without Kel here to keep us on track.
That's right.
Unfortunately, I don't have anything personal for my week in Fab, so I think that means we can just get into some of the juicier topics. I guess, do we want to start off? Or sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did you manage to catch any Pro Tour stuff or any of the memes that were floating around over the weekend? Because there was some funny... DM Armada posted a funny sort of retrospect of what happened in the final, which was hilarious.
Yeah, I did see all of the insane response to Sigil of Solace being, I believe, I unfortunately I didn't catch any of the coverage as it was happening.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, it was the player found a Sigil of Solace off of a sink below for to keep them alive.
That's right. Yeah. So
ultimately win the game.
If I can remember correctly, it was an axe that was coming in for 5, and both players were on 1. So it was an axe that was coming in for 5, and they basically had to sink below, and then sink a card from hand, and then draw the sigil and play the sigil to stay alive. And that's exactly what happened. And then obviously, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, I was watching it, but I know it seems like a long time ago now because the internet has happened since. The French player Arthur had an Azz established on board, and he had no arcane barrier, so he was going to win on the next turn regardless. So it was Max's game. It was Max's game in the bag if the sigil was not found, and it was obviously Arthur's game if he survived. So it was right down to the wire. So a great way to sort of end Pro Tour, which is the Pro Tour logo is directly above my head here, because I managed to catch a lot of the day 2 coverage, and that the sort of Hatchet Dorinthia list was extremely interesting to see being played out, because it wasn't something I was really aware of at all as well.
Hatchets has been a big favorite of mine for Dorinthia for a long time. That was actually, I think, the first real Blitz deck that I ever put together was Hatchet Dory, to the point that my nickname for the deck, which is super dumb, and I very much encourage people to take this, was referring to it as Chicken Hatchet Dory.
Chicken Hatchet.
Because there's the food, the dish, chicken cacciatore.
Oh yes, I think I remember you've told this before. I think yeah. Cacciatore. What is cacciatore? Just going off the rails even further.
So actually, I don't even know. I've never had it personally. I've just heard about it. I don't even know how to spell it. Chicken cacciatore. Okay, it is. It's like chicken with garlic and bell peppers, and it kind of looks like a stew. Looks great, but obviously probably doesn't win you a Pro Tour.
No.
Although it might,
No. But yeah.
But yeah, so that was my nickname for the deck that I really liked, and the deck is just really fun. I mean, with something like Spillblood is such an insane support piece for hatchets in general.
Yeah.
And just the new support that Dorinthia has access to, specifically the most expensive non-legendary card in Heavy Hitters, which is Blade Flurry, being a like $35 US card, and the most expensive Majestic in the set. So, it's been putting in a lot of work, and obviously it's good enough to take it home. So I'm really excited to see that personally. Big fan of hatchets.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, but I guess there are sort of 2 other big things that we can discuss, and sort of grouping them into camps. We did get a banned and restricted announcement.
Oh, yeah. We did.
Banned and suspended. And we also have the new cards, which is kind of a funny play on words. We have some new cards that we can talk about. Let's talk about the bans, because I actually think they're pretty interesting, and it's something that I have mentioned in our chats with Brian Gottlieb specifically, that it represents something that I really respect about LSS and their sort of design philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the article. I remember what the cards were, but I haven't read the whole thing. So so I know that Crown of Seeds is banned from Classic Constructed, and then Berserk is banned as well. So Crown of Seeds I understand, Berserk I don't really understand. But what was you sort of going to get out with this?
Yeah, so the long and short of it, I'm just pulling up the article itself here, but the long and short of it is they banned Crown of Seeds because it's just sort of a restrictive card to have for just the Earth talent in general, and that's something that people are now speculating because they've preemptively banned it. Because right now the only hero that can use it is Briar, and Briar doesn't really make use of it very much. You don't really want to like put your arsenal on the bottom with Briar. You want more of a proactive game plan. So because they're looking to ban it while it's not good, the speculation becomes, they're probably looking to print other Earth heroes in the future. and with Crown of Seeds being like the best defensive helmet maybe in the game, that they're feeling kind of stifled with design for Earth heroes because of the fact that it just exists. And that's sort of the main theme behind this banned and restricted announcement as well, because that was also the messaging behind Berserk. But yeah, so Crown of Seeds was preemptively banned because it just didn't give them as much space to design Earth heroes and cards, I think, in general. And then, yeah, same thing with Berserk. Right now, it's not really doing anything. I think in the article itself, it actually says that like Berserk in KO is kind of a trap, or maybe Brian Gottlieb said that on Twitter. Somebody at one point said that Berserk is like basically just a trap. Like it's a card that doesn't really do anything, but it's also a design of a card where it either does absolutely nothing or it's broken. Like it's either a card that draws you 0 cards or it draws you your deck, and there's kind of no healthy in between there. So yeah, they said, it was the same sort of thing. They were just running up against walls from a design standpoint,
right,
where it's like, because this card exists, we can't do some of the cool things like push the envelope as much as we want to, because as soon as we print something that interacts favorably with Berserk, it becomes the best card in the format.
Yeah, so it's a proactive ban for maybe ideas that are circulating around, and it's gatekeeping those ideas, because once they print the cards that they're thinking about, Berserk or Crown of Seeds then becomes a very big issue. And it limits their creativity from the off, because when people think, Earth heroes, you don't think of the Earth heroes, you think of, I'm going to be able to use Crown of Seeds. And that's not a space that they want to get into. They want to get into the hero space rather than, I can use a piece of armor, I imagine.
Yeah. They want it to be less about the cards that surround the hero as opposed to the hero itself. You don't want to be like, I think you're exactly right. They don't want people to be excited about specifically Crown of Seeds and have the hero just be like, even if the hero has like no text and it's just an Earth hero, then it's like, oh sweet, I get to play Crown of Seeds. If they're even remotely defensive, then it becomes the best headpiece by a mile, because it, especially when we were watching Oldhim games, even Starvo games, it was a headpiece that would block 5, 6, 7 damage in a game, which is just outclasses everything. And it smooths out your draws. It's crazy. So yeah, that's again something that I really do respect about LSS, and I've gone on record saying that as well. Like, they basically have admitted, like, we are paying attention to the card pool as we design cards to make sure that things aren't going to interact in a really like toxic or negative way. And because they sort of realized that both Crown of Seeds and Berserk are those types of cards that just by virtue of how they were designed, they present problems, that they're just like, you know what, before this becomes a problem, we're just going to nip it in the bud. I totally respect that. I like that a lot, actually. I think that's good design philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back onto what you said before about your respect for the Dusk Blade situation as well, where they just came out and said, we made a mistake, sorry. That takes a lot of integrity as a company to do.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's definitely the same sort of vibes as what we're getting from this article. And it's good stuff all round, I think. Yeah.
And the fact that it was surrounded with relevant information, and instead of just being like, hey, these are banned, see you later, like that would just leave people just scratching their heads. Just what's the deal?
Yeah.
But yeah, this article that basically can be summed up as like its design space purposes. This article is still like 3 or 4 sort of full paragraphs long, which is great. Like, it's a ton of information, and it's as much as I think again, Brian Gottlieb on Twitter, I think, said the way that I approach these articles is what would I want to see as a player when these decisions and changes are implemented. So once again, yeah, shout out. I have immense respect for the design team, and I think they're doing good stuff, and I think it's just solidified by this once again.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of design, we actually have some new heroes that were revealed at PTLA. and they are kind of crazy. People are kind of going nuts over them, and I'm specifically like really excited for one of them, maybe two of them. I need to know more about the Illusionist before I really feel it.
Yeah.
But Az, why don't you introduce us to New?
New. Yep, so you'll see her face directly above us here. So first of all, I just want to shout out the art direction is just fantastic. The trailer as well was very spicy. A lot of people were like, yeah, this is cool, this is nice. A lot of cool pieces of art in there, which I can see being on cards in the set. So it's going to be interesting to see when all that comes out, what we can expect from that. But yeah, so this is New, so N-U-U is how you spell her name, and obviously we've got New Alluring Desire as the adult version. So both of the heroes come in 20 life and 40 life. BLITZ, and I think we can set the precedent that all the heroes are the same as well.
Yep.
20 for BLITZ, 40 for normal, and this is a mystic assassin hero. So imagine, Kel, if you're listening back to this, people that love Assassin, this is something that's speaks to a lot of people. It reminds me of she reminds me of like I'm not sure whether you've ever played Dynasty Warriors or Dynasty Warriors, but it was like a set in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms era, and she reminds me of like Diao Chan. I think it was Diao Chan. Got that same sort of look. But if you know what I'm talking about, leave a comment in the section below as to Dynasty Warriors references. But yeah, the art is just very, very cool. Anyway, going into the mechanics, she says your attacks with stealth get, when this chain link resolves, banish all action cards defending this. That's pretty cool. And then it says instant for 3 blue resources, which we don't know how you get these blue resources. We can discuss what our speculations might be in a bit. It says look at the top card of an opposing hero's deck. If it's blue, you may banish it. Until end of turn, you may play blue cards from that hero's banished zone without paying their resource cost or their energy cost. So that's pretty good, because this also applies to the cards that you've banished from the stealth attacks as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just if there are blue cards in their banished zone, you can play them.
You can just
for
play
free.
them. Yeah.
Which I think is kind of crazy. I will admit I misread her first ability and just completely whiffed on the fact that it's action cards. I thought that it just said banish all cards defending this, and I was like, oh, equipment just are unplayable against me.
Imagine that.
Like just fully, yeah, not worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very interesting playstyle because obviously you kind of want to turbo mill your opponent with like contracts and stuff, and then she also interacts with stealth cards, which is an interesting kind of crossover.
So if you banished a card, via contracts, you could then play it. Could you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
because it's all the same banish zone, which is kind of nuts. The blue resources, I think they're chi.
That's right.
That's there's the red, which is capital R resource. When you refer to a resource system, Flesh and Blood has the resource system. And then there's these blue resources that are known as chi. We have no information about what cards create chi or how you can amass chi in any capacity. But all 3 of the heroes that we're going to be looking at today have abilities that require 3 chi. So depending on how easy or hard these are to get, these abilities are either like way better or way worse than they seem, which makes it really hard to determine exactly how strong they are. But
I mean, do you have any sort of speculations off the bat as to how you're going to get these chi resources? Because to me, it just looks like even the symbol isn't any different. The symbol is just the resource symbol but blue. So is there any immediate speculations as to how you might think we can get this? Because I have one straight away.
It's interesting because so far we've only seen chi costs come in 3. There's a lot of things that care about like blue.
Yeah.
There's a speculation that I've seen floating around that seems like potentially plausible, but also maybe like confusing for a new player and maybe even like mechanically boring, that like it is just 3 resources that are all from the same card. Like you have to pitch a blue specifically to activate them. or like specifically a blue mystic talented card. Or maybe just resources from a talented card, or a mystic talented card. But I don't know. I like, outside of there being like a piece of equipment across all three that creates chi like on hit, or like as a trigger, like you do something and then you make a chi. I just like, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around what they would do other than just being like, this is resource. Like this is just I honestly, I think for me, having it be like this has to be 3 resources that are generated by the same card, I think is already like pretty restrictive. Because then that means like you can't supplement with like a tunic resource or a vest of the first fist or anything like that. Like it has to be, you pitch a full card into this. That feels interesting, maybe. But then it's also kind of, it's just something that you have to know almost.
Yeah, and then
unless there's like a reminder.
Yeah, exactly. And then reds and yellows in the set aren't going to be as good either, are they?
Yeah, they become like almost useless.
Yeah. So if it's all blue themed, maybe it is. Maybe it's similar to Uprising where we had a lot of red stuff, red matters. But my theory is that these blue resources. Either it's the simple thing that you said, you have to just spend a blue to access it. But we've seen a few other cards, which we'll get to in a moment, which reference how many blue cards you've pitched, you get something, which we'll get into in a bit. But I think this could be something along the lines of you can only pay the cost of this ability through floating resources rather than pitching for it. You have to have those resources floating. So if they're floating,
you have to pay them via like
you have to overpay.
Pitching.
Yeah. And that would make sense with blue. That would make sense with blues as well, because you pay blue, you normally have 2 resources floating or something like that. But yeah, that would make it also hard to. That would also make it quite hard to do as well. But that's my theory. Is paying you have to pay. You have to pay some amount from stuff that's floating or something like that. I don't know, but to me it just seems like it's a resource symbol with a blue on it. So it's got to be something to do with the blue cards. But yeah, that's just a wild theory on my end.
I think this is definitely going to be the Blue Matters set. Like much like you're saying with Uprising and how Draconic was all red cards. I think it's going to be interesting to see what an all blue set looks like, because obviously if all of the cards that are good are blue, then the resource costs of them don't really matter. Like everything, just you all of your hands make 12 resource. So
yeah,
it's just kind of interesting to see what that will look like. And I think that's probably one of the ways that they're looking to balance this, where it's not just, this is not, maybe it isn't like just a blue then, like I was saying, because then we're probably going to have a decent amount of them. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I almost have no idea what they're going to implement here, and that's kind of exciting, with it not being like super obvious.
Yeah, I can't wait to see when that's revealed.
Yeah, there's the next hero as well actually has something that's kind of a head scratcher for illusionist connoisseurs and enthusiasts such as myself. Next up, we have Enigma, the Ledger of Ancestry. / Enigma is the Blitz version. She's a mystic illusionist hero, 40 life for CC, 20 life for Blitz. And she reads, your first Spectral Shield attack each turn costs 1 resource less to activate, which is kind of interesting because, I mean, most people, specifically myself, are used to attacking with them for free, but I do now realize that that's like off of Luminaris, which was a mistake. So off of something like Iris of Reality, this would make them cost 2 instead of 3. Which I think is totally reasonable. I mean, with this hero, you wouldn't even be able to play Luminaris. She's not a light illusionist, so it's kind of an interesting line of text. Maybe there's going to be another Iris of Reality-esque attack with this sort of thing. I think there even is one that makes them attack for more than 4. I can't recall off the top of my head. I'm just so used to Luminaris.
Yeah, so that one that you're referring to is called Reality Refractor.
That's the one.
And basically, with Enigma's ability, what this would actually turn Reality Refractor into is a weapon that says once per turn action for 1 resource, attack for 5 with an Illusionist aura, which would be a Spectral Shield. So it become a 1 for 5 with Reality Refractor.
1 for 5 is a pretty good stat line for 0 cards, essentially. Like, obviously, you have to pitch, but you know, having 1 card in hand, only pitching for a 1 for 5 is a pretty good stat line to be at. But also, she doesn't even stop there. She also has a once per turn instant to pay 3 chi to create a Spectral Shield token with a +1 attack counter. So obviously we've seen the power of Spectral Shields before, making them kind of, in this case, for free. Like original Prism made them, but you had to banish a card from your soul every time, which is just an additional piece of resource that you have to put into it. So this is just, as long as you have the chi once per turn, you can make a Spectral Shield, which I think is going to be pretty good depending on how easy chi is to pay. Again, we don't really, at least I don't have any idea. But then also with it being an attack for 2, like, or I guess in the case of Reality Refractor and Iris of Reality, it would give them +1 attack on top of their base. So it would be a 1 for 6 with Reality Refractor, which is like a really good stat line. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what the support is. This appears to be the blue Illusionist that I care about. Although she interacts specifically with Spectral Shields, like maybe slightly more than I would like, because obviously I want to do like Phantasmify shenanigans.
I'm sure there'll be a few.
Yeah, what do you?
I'm sure there'll be a few blue cards that you can shove into that sort of shell, which you've got there, which you're very fond of, clearly. But hopefully, this, you know, I'm pretty sure this sparks your creative deck building mind to build something around this for sure, because you're a massive Illusionist fan, aren't you? So.
Yeah, I really like Illusionist.
I really am. But yeah, I kind of called something, because I said in the last podcast that, you know, what happened in Dynasty, we had a lot of Spectral Shield Matters cards, and, you know, this hero comes out which cares about Spectral Shields. So I was kind of on the right lines with what we were saying in the previous podcast. A lot of those Dynasty cards might now be playable, but there was an archetype there which cared about Illusionist Spectral Shield builds, which we do have now in this. But yeah, I think it looks really, really cool. I'm still just racking my brain as to what this blue pitch symbol thing is, because all of the heroes can use this ability at instant speed, which also gives me the impression that you want to be doing it on your opponent's turn somehow, but I don't know what that's going to feed itself into. So again, yeah, it's good to note as well that all these heroes, including the one that we're going to speak about in a moment, all of their chi abilities can be used at instant speed or in reaction to something else. So yeah. Yeah,
and then finally, the third hero from Part the Mistveil that we're looking at, which is kind of the one that I'm most excited for, just because of what he represents. Do you want to introduce us to Zen? Please, Mr. Azz.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is the Mystic Ninja, which just sounds like it just fits perfectly. Mystic Ninja, let's be honest, it sounds great. And this is Zen, or Zen, Tamer of Purpose, exactly the same stat lines as what we've said already. And he just has this once per turn instant ability. Pay 3 chi, so 3 chi across the board for all heroes, instant speed. Create a Crouching Tiger in your hand, then search your deck for a card of combo, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it this turn. So sort of like Katsu, but not having to hit your opponent. You just have to pay the chi to go and get a card with combo, put it into your hand, and then you get a Crouching Tiger as well, which, what, they attack for 1, do they, off the top of my head?
Yeah, I think baseline, I think they attack for 0.
I think
they're
ephemeral.
They do. Yeah, I think they're ephemeral, they attack for 0.
That's right.
I'm just going to double check that in case I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. Yeah, they attack for 0, but there are a ton of ways to buff up Crouching Tigers that we've seen. There's like Roar of the Tiger. I think it's called Roar of the Tiger. It's basically the Art of War, but for them. There's also just Art of War.
I And there's combo tiger cards as well, right? Cards that care about combo with tigers.
There are very specifically Tiger Swipe is a card that I've always been very interested in. It's another one in the line of ninja cards that care about a very specific interaction and like value engine.
Yeah.
Like I've mentioned before, I love Phoenix Form. That was like one of my favorite cards that just never worked out properly. But Tiger Swipe is, for those of you who don't remember, it's the majestic ninja attack from Dynasty. It's a 0-for-2 that blocks for 3, and it has combo that cares about crouching tigers. It's the one that if Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, this has +2, go again, and when this hits, you create X Crouching Tigers in your banish zone, where X is the number of Crouching Tigers you control. You may play them this turn. So this guy searches for Tiger Swipe and makes a Crouching Tiger. Like I'm hype. I'm so excited.
Love and life. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's again just very dependent on what the hell chi is, though.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these. We've seen like Katsu try and like Kitty Katsu was what people were calling the Katsu version of this Crouching Tiger deck. So it's nice to see an actual mystic ninja that can somehow conjure these tigers and then fire them. And it's like similar to what we were saying. I think it was last podcast or the podcast before. It is the ninja that's doing the chi blasts and everything. So we were sort of on the right lines there as well.
His chi blasts are just tigers, just like
firing
tigers out at people.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see what this guy's capable of. I'm very in on playing a Tiger Swipe, like just Crouching Tiger style deck. That's something that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I assume these are going to be support cards in some way for any of these 3 heroes. There were also 2 additional cards, 2 promos that were revealed that I think are coming bundled in with Dragon Shield sleeves. I
think
if
so.
I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So these are relatively similar. So I'm just going to kind of bundle these together because they're both reactions. The first one is called Wide Blue Yonder. And it's a blue 0-cost attack reaction that blocks for 2. It's a mystic attack reaction that gives target attack +1 for each blue card that you've pitched this turn. Which is kind of an interesting set of rules text, because there are cards that care about like the number of blue cards in your pitch zone, like Final Act, the melody attack.
Yeah.
Cares about the number that are in your pitch zone. But for example, with this, if you like Potion of Luck and like shuffle your pitch zone back and draw cards and whatever, this keeps track of it. It is like how many that you've pitched so far this turn, which is kind of unintuitive a little bit. And then there's also Big Blue Sky, which is the defense reaction sort of mirror. It's another blue pitch, 0-cost, has base defensive 2 and is a mystic defense reaction, which gets +1 defense for each card, or each blue card, that you've pitched this turn. So 2 cards that are sort of two sides of the same coin that don't really give us a ton of information about what chi is.
No, I mean, but I think it kind of sort of falls into what I was saying earlier about overpaying for things, because how easily are you able to pitch into something multiple times without spending the resources that you already have available? So that's what I'm thinking. There's got to be a way to continuously overpay and float resources to be able to do these things on not only your instant speed abilities, which all of these heroes have access to, but also cards like this as well.
Yeah, and something else that's interesting is that these don't help themselves in their game plan. Like these cost 0, so you don't have to pitch anything to have these be in effect. But like for Big Blue Sky, obviously on your opponent's turn, when you'd be using this as a defense reaction, you're going to want to have pitched into something. So I assume either your hero ability or something like not actually Oldham's hero ability, but something like that where it's reactive, or like Iron Rot or something. You'll probably want this to block for, I think, at base 4, which means that you would have had to pitch 2 blue cards on your opponent's turn. which
so-
is 6 resources.
Yeah, so how
what are you doing with that?
How do you do that? How do you pitch something
Yeah.
like if there was something like, you know, a floating piece of equipment that all heroes got access to in limited, like a amulet or something, right? And you can, like Amulet of Ice or whatever, that's instant speed. I'm not sure whether Amulet of Ice was instant speed or not, but you can pitch into it. So you've got a blue in your pitch zone to then turn on your other stuff. So maybe there's like stuff that you can access in the sealed or limited environment where you can pitch into things or maybe just something that says put a blue card into your pitch zone and then generate that many resources. So, something that bypasses the sort of the way of playing cards that hasn't been, you know, that we currently know. So if you play a card, you then pitch a card to pay for it, then you've got floating resources. Maybe there's something that says put things into your pitch zone and then get that many resources, because then you can overpitch without having to pitch for anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like something that, they have kind of done this type of effect that you're describing already with Tome of Imperial Flame.
Yes, exactly.
A card that specifically says on the card, pitch 2 cards for like not to activate an effect or to play anything, just pitch. So like
exactly that then, yeah. Yeah, so it could be similar to that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about, like, how do these sort of play into this? I assume that there are more clues than I'm able to see, at least, for like how these play into the chi strategy. But they're doing a really good job at just sort of like drip feeding information.
Oh, they love it. They love the content creators like us just hopping on and chatting absolute garbage, you know, stuff that may come to pass. It may not. But that's all part of the hype train. And obviously we're all very excited for it and we want to know how to activate these things and do these things.
Absolutely.
So I can't remember. I think they have told us when the spoiler season will begin. But they are going to be doing some early reveals again, I think, which should be fun, because that's always fun to see what's coming out. And, you know, there's going to be expansion slots, of course, in this set as well. So, you know, we're still going to get that treatment as well. So, but yeah, very, 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 very excited to play with these heroes and see what the limited and, you know, limited sealed draft stuff is like with this, because, you know, James has come on record and said, "Oh, it's my favourite set so far. I'm most proud of it and all this." And I know that, you know, probably says that about everything, but, you know, this is Mysteria. You know, it's all tied in with Japan release and all this, so it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. There's also a piece of art that this just sort of reoccurred to me. There's a piece of art that is absolutely gorgeous that's been circulating around. That appears to be, at least from what I can tell, because they did mention that there's going to be a reprinted legendary in this set. Like there's going to be basically like +1 legendary. And I think based on the art and the fact that like this is, you know, Mysteria and there's going to be like people have been hyped about Illusionist and stuff like that, I think it's going to be a new art for Phantasmal Footsteps.
Oh yes, I've seen this, like the high heels sort of thing.
Yeah, like it like the art is absolutely phenomenal. Here, I'll post it in our chat here, but yeah, like people are speculating that this is going to be like a Japanese only print of Phantasmal Footsteps, maybe, as like a, you know, here's to our official Japanese launch. And if so, I need it. I need it really bad because this art is gorgeous.
It's pretty good, yeah. But yeah.
But yeah, either way, like, extremely excited for this set and what it brings.
Was that in the trailer, that art? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, it's going to be so cool. I'm really pumped. And yeah, James White specifically coming out and saying like, this is my favorite set. He you know, I don't know, at least off the top of my head, that he has specifically said that about other sets. Like, I know that he's like, you know, this is, you know, we're really proud of this set, whatever. Like, this is, you know, obviously good. They put in a ton of work into it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's specifically gone on record to be like, this is, I think, the peak of TCG design, which is essentially what he said. He's like, I think this is maybe the best set that we've made so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, excited to see what that means. Excited to see, because there's a card that specifically cares about how many spectral shields you have when it attacks. So like maybe that's going to be a much bigger theme for Enigma as well. So I'm excited to see how they make that like not miserable. Yeah, spectral shields are kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah, and another thing as well we haven't seen is obviously, you know, all their weapons and stuff. You know, the things that they're going to have access to that start in play and stay in play depending on their hero and what hero you choose. So maybe even their weapons aren't weapons; they're just ways of pitching things or generating chi and doing some stuff along the way. So we've all got that to come as well, but I'm sure that's also going to play into it also. If they're all mystic heroes, they're going to have some sort of mystical weapons as well, which will probably be chi related.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll have like more things like Ornate Tessin or Annals of Sutcliffe that are like not weapons, but they do give you advantage. You can pitch into them.
Yeah, or even exactly, just more sidearms or more sort of weird stuff that start in play, stay in play that you can pitch into to get effects that then turn on your other effects that care about blues in the pitch zone or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's they have the opportunity to do some really interesting stuff and to really play with design space, which I don't think that they necessarily did for for heavy hitters. Because it was just iterating on the, you know, good old-fashioned fisticuffs of Flesh and Blood, which is not necessarily like bad, but it's also, I feel like there's not a ton of room for innovation when it comes to like, I'm punching my opponent, and it's like, oh, I'm punching you harder.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited to see what comes up next. I also just double checked. I obviously, like we say for every spoiler season, I never expect to get a spoiler. It's always really very. I'm very thankful every time they give us the opportunity, but I have not received an offer for a spoiler as of yet. So
no, same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me, to be fair, because I'm not into Illusionist and all this, you know. So it's okay for certain creators to sit out in favour of others that you know might specialise in those areas, and that's, you know, it's great to see, and it's always a fun time whether you're involved or not. You get to see everything, and we're pretty much involved anyway because, you know, we're always keeping an eye on things so we can chat about it on the Living Legends podcast. So you know, we're always engaged by these things whether we get them or not, but luckily we are.
Yeah, we're always going to be interacting in some capacity.
Exactly. But luckily we have been involved. All three of us on the podcast have been involved in spoiler seasons for the last 3 or 4 sets in a row now. But maybe it's your time to get a legendary because you're a big Illusionist fan. Who knows?
That would be really cool, but also at the same time, like, I know that there are some fiends for Illusionist in the community. Shout out Dozer with like Tank Prism. But yeah, that would be really cool. I would love to just get like a Phantasmify or Transmogrify style buff. As if there is one that's in the set, it would make my day if that was our preview card. But yeah, again, we never expect anything. We're always going to be here for the ride anyway. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. Are there any? Have you given any thought as to like what cards you want to see or specifically don't want to see? I assume you don't want to see another Arclight Sentinel.
No, yeah, like counter spells and all this. You know, I don't want to see any of those. But you know, I don't know. We might need that sort of thing in the game. We just don't know yet. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm really interested. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see how the assassin works. To be honest. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, I mean, everyone wants to play with her. Let's be honest. But yeah, I just can't wait to see more stuff from this set. It's going to be awesome, and the Japanese language cards as well, right? So everyone wants to get their hands on those. Yes. So that's confirmed.
I'm exceedingly excited for Japanese language cards. I think that's going to be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I just want Japanese language everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find where, because I think I've shouted out Grant before, but he was looking at, as a result of the new heroes, and specifically new, there is a Rune Blade card that allows you to pay, I think it's like XX to make X rune chance, and it is blue. And apparently, as the rules are right now, if you banish it in any capacity as new, like if your opponent is playing Rune Blade, and you somehow put this, I forget what it's called. It's Sonata. It's not Sonata Arcanix. It's one of the new sonatas. Sonata Phantasmia, I think, makes
or Galaxia,
X rune chance or
one of
whatever.
them.
Yeah. But yeah, apparently, if you banish it, you can choose any value as X when you play it without paying its resource cost. So you can just say, I make 1,000,000 rune chance.
Yeah. That's
So
pretty
obviously, they're probably going to fix up the rules so that that isn't a thing. But shout out Grant for always being the guy that looks at new cards and says, hey, by the way.
cool. How do I break this? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll shout out another funny interaction that I think came from Sin FABTCG on or Sin TCG on Twitter. But he said that Nu can basically banish Teklo Vossen's pants from his deck, which I just thought was funny
yeah, he can.
because she can banish blues, which obviously Teklo's pants and armor and stuff are blue. I just thought that was funny. So yeah, she can do that also. She can't equip them, but she can still just take away Teklo's pants, which is just quite funny. But yeah, fun times all round. And there was a few other things as well that were announced at Pro Tour as well, which we can sort of delve into a little bit as well if you want. So first of all, the Armory decks. The first Armory deck is revealed to be KO, which kind of makes sense because KO is the most represented hero right now. So for LSS to maybe proactively, maybe they've had a few decks ready and they just proactively release them as they sort of witness the meta, because I think it is a good way to get players into the game by allowing them to pick up the most represented and most consistent deck, I would say, at an Armory level. What do you think about that, KO being the deck to come out first?
I think that's pretty fine. Again, as the sort of level that I think they're looking to hit in terms of like competitiveness and also like the deck has to be a certain level of competitive, I think, but it also has to be a certain level of accessible.
Yeah.
Like you can't I would say that if the first CC deck that they decided to come out with was something like Kano, that is a gigantic whiff. That is like such an inaccessible, complicated deck. That having a specific product for that without also coming with like a spreadsheet or a YouTube video of like how to play is like pretty bad. But I think that KO is probably a really good balance right now of like viability and also accessibility. I think that it's a pretty straightforward deck, all things considered. The only thing that you really have to pay attention to in terms of the deck sort of like bending the rules in any way is that all of your 5s are 6s. And outside of that, it's just like a pretty straightforward rough and tumble brute deck. And I think that's great. I think that there's the opportunity for them to reprint some really good cards. Like one of the main things that I think is really exciting is that this means that there's a possibility that Enlightened Strike gets reprinted in this deck. Which, I mean, it hasn't been like a super expensive card in a long time. It's obviously not Command and Conquer levels, but it's still like a $30 card. Like it is still a decent amount of value to put into one of these decks, which helps it to sell. It helps it to help out new players. The only thing that kind of sucks is that like with it being CC, I would prefer if there were 3 instead of like one-ofs of good cards. And I don't think that they would likely do that.
Yeah.
But the option exists. They could also, if they're feeling really spicy, they could just reprint Scabskin Leathers and just have that be in the deck.
Yeah. Well,
so
Scabbies
like,
aren't too expensive either. at the moment. So
yeah, so I think that's probably an easy reprint. It's like I don't think that affects the market too much, and is just kind of a free, like, good piece of equipment to include.
And a fun one as well, because like a new player, I get to roll dice and I can do two things now. You know, a bit of chaos, bit of fun added in. So yeah, that could be a good shout to reprint those. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think KO is a good place to start. And obviously, if they probably have these decks, you know, done already, right? So they could proactively, as they do with the expansion slot, print things or add things proactively to the constantly evolving metagame at large where they see fit, which is obviously why the expansion slot has worked so well and why these things could work well as well, because if they do have these products that could just be chopped and changed depending on what's going on and how they feel that new players might want to pick up the most well-performing deck or the deck that's not doing well or whatever, they can gauge that. They can read that from Twitter. They can read that from all of the stuff. You know, it's people that are doing the research and development to make sure those products are released at good times. So yeah, I think KO is a good place to start.
It feels like they probably, like, I don't know if this is the case or at all, but they probably have like a couple of them already done. Like, they're like, these are the ones that we're going to print, these are the lists, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of deciding which ones are good to print right now based on, like you're saying, just sort of the general meta and how people are feeling about it. Because like you said, KO is a pretty well represented deck right now. So if people are looking to get into CC specifically, that's a great starting point. That is an excellent, it's a deck that you're going to be seeing at your local meta. If you're playing in CC already, you've probably already played against it at this point. And so it's not going to be something that like, we're going to print a Bolton deck. It's like, okay, well, Bolton's a little bit of a complicated strategy. It's also kind of a dark horse. So like, maybe not. Like, I've heard people say like, you know, it is a good deck right now. And I totally believe them, but it is like totally different from, you know, it would be like back in the old days, like printing, you know, like when Chain was at its peak, like, I'm going to print a Chain deck, or, I'm going to print Azalea, back before Azalea got any of their things.
Exactly.
So I think they do have to kind of lean into this is the popular deck. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that just makes a lot of sense to make the product more enticing to buy. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think you said something about the fact it was well represented deck, and obviously we just had Pro Tour. It didn't win, unfortunately. So just going back onto Pro Tour a little bit, Dromai won the whole thing. So that was actually a hero that I called. I said Dromai's going to win this whole thing, but Arthur was just fantastic the whole way through. He was on the back foot a lot of the games as well. I think he stared down a couple of cast bones on turn 1. So he leaked a lot of damage in both of his sort of top 8 games, if I remember correctly. But he faced adversity from the very off and still managed to come through. So fair play. But yeah, Dromai did win that. So we might see a lot of Dromai being picked up as a result of that very soon. Where, you know, and sort of in contrast to that, what's a good potential counter to Dromai? Brutes, things that have poppers and all that sort of stuff. So maybe KO as a new deck could be a good thing to take to an armory if Dromai then becomes popular. But then saying that, Dromai is now only 4 points away from Living Legend. So that's also garbage that I've just spewed there, because I've just remembered that she's very close to Living Legend. So yeah, she's about to go.
It's okay. It's okay. I remember, I think it was either on this on the podcast or when I was talking with Tommy Fresh about heavy hitters, how I was talking about like I think it was Betsys Hat, the Good Time Chapeau. I was like, oh, can you imagine if this was like just a brute card or something, or like just a I remember saying, it was like, imagine if this was just like I think it was just a brute card.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, not only is it not a brute card, it's also a specialization. So never mind.
Never mind.
This is like
whoopsie.
This is such a sweet, like, if everything about the world was different, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bicycle, you know, like that sort of deal.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, sometimes you just have to keep the creative juices flowing in any way that you can. And sometimes that's just spouting garbage,
Yeah,
like
that's
I do a lot.
Exactly, and that's what the Living Legends podcast is all about. It's just natural progression.
Absolutely.
But yeah, just to touch on a few things, comments on the last videos we had as well. This is from Tam Kablam, commenting on the meta at large, because the meta is very varied right now. There is a large contingency of KOs, and that's just because of how consistent it is, and that's why obviously they printed the first deck being that. But they're saying an open meta is a healthy meta. Love seeing a variety of heroes all getting points as well. So yeah, that's another good thing as well that a lot of people have commented on, for good and ill, as well as the fact that the meta at large is very open at the moment. So you could go into a tournament and no one's going to say, oh, why are you bringing that deck? There's always an argument to be made, especially if you know the deck. A reason to bring it to a big event like this, and we did see a large spread across the board. So that's always a good thing as well to see.
When I was chatting with Jay, once again, shout out Jay, Zen State Fab.
Yeah.
I was chatting with him a little while ago, and I was like, so hypothetically, if I wanted to start playing CC, because I've always been a Blitz guy, because it's the only place that I can play. Originally, the reason that I said that I liked playing Blitz was because I got to play Prism, which is still true, Ira, and Chain, both of which are no longer true. So Blitz is a format where I can still play Prism, and that's about it. But yeah, so I was like, hypothetically, if I wanted to play CC, what would I do? What should I build? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, you have to be more specific. I'm like, well, is there a deck that's good and fun? And he's like, all of them. Apparently, the projected meta for our ProQuest that's going to be coming up in, I think, May. The projected meta, unless something changes really significantly, he's like, there's probably going to be maybe a max of 2 decks that are overlapping. Everybody has been on something different. Everybody's been seeing success with different things. Like we have one player locally that just basically only plays Azalea and and do quite well. There's somebody who's been on Bolton really consistently. There's people on Kasai. There's people on Dorinthia. There's people on Victor, on Bravo, on just everybody.
That's good.
Yeah. And I think that's great because I think back to some of the tournaments that I've been at, and it's like half of the tables are just the same deck mirror matches. Thinking back to the ProQuest, the first ever ProQuest that I judged, which was when Starvo was legal. I'm pretty sure it was 18 players that we had, 12 of them were Starvo.
Yeah.
And that's miserable. The top 8 was all Starvo mirrors, except for, I think, one guy who ended up getting to the top table, and he was playing Briar. But I think every other match in the top 8 was Starvo v Starvo.
And that doesn't look good for a game, does it? Right now,
no.
You might see a couple of strong decks and strong representation. Like there's 4 KOs in the top 8 this weekend. But apart from that, there's still quite a nice little spread across there and across the whole event in general. And I think I've got a little post here actually. So yeah, there was 4 KOs, 2 Dorinthias, a Kano, and a Dromai in the top 8 of Pro Tour. And I love seeing the Dorinthia there. The Dorinthias, both the Dorinthias, I think were on. I think they were fairly different lists as well. Obviously, Maximilian Klein is the guy that was doing the Hatchets situation, Hatchet of Body and Mind, and I think Joshua Lau was actually no, maybe they were both Hatchets. Can't remember, but yeah, so a little bit of a varied top 8 there, which we haven't seen. Nice to see at least going forward, and also all of the nationalities of the people that were playing the heroes were all different. Every single one was different from a different place in the world, which I thought was great. It was great to see. Yeah, it just solidifies the fact that this game, people just come all from all over the world to play it, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful to see. It's just really nice to just to have people it really goes to show that the game is accessible even in places where there aren't necessarily there might not be as much support. I do remember when we were talking about this in a previous episode, we had some people commenting from like Brazil that were like, we don't have an LGS that runs Flesh and Blood events, which sucks. But yeah, there's players from all over. Even when we were in Barcelona, the top 8 was pretty diverse in terms of nationalities as well, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, you speak about
it's wonderful.
You speak about Brazil as well. There was a Brazilian player in the top 8 here in Pro Tour, and he was on Kano. So, you know, there's definitely a scene in Brazil. If someone can make it through to the top 8, you know, without a game store, that's pretty good. You know, I know it is flourishing there now, but as you say, it wasn't at one point. People were just playing because they loved the game, not necessarily their store carrying it, sort of situation.
Yeah, yeah, it was like until pretty recently. There wasn't direct support as far as I'm aware. So yeah, it's really awesome to see the fact that people are, you know, still able to interact with this game that obviously a lot of people love very much. So
yeah, it's truly a global game now. And segueing on to another thing as well is that the World Championship was confirmed to be in Japan this year as well. So not only are they getting a world premiere for Part of the Mistvale, Worlds is also going to be in Osaka, Japan this year.
Yes.
So yeah, finally sort of servicing that sort of player base, and that's going to be an amazing experience for whoever goes to that. I don't think any of us are probably going to go to this one. It's quite difficult.
Yeah. I think Kel has mentioned potentially on Twitter. I don't remember exactly where he said it, but I think he said that he might be able to figure it out. He might be able to make his way there, but yeah, I think for you and me, we were kind of talking about it a little bit separately, and I just don't think that I'm going to be able to swing it, which is unfortunate because I do really want to go to Japan. That's a trip that I've wanted to go on for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think the financials are going to quite match up in time
exactly
to take a Japan trip before the end of 2024.
Yeah. We'll see, but yeah, probably unlikely. And yeah, Kel said he would be in Japan for the premiere event, I think, because I think he's going there for something else. But he might be around for the premiere event in Tokyo. Lucky guy, he's gone twice this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
there's probably going to be some like specific promo for that event specifically, and he's going to be able to get it, and then he's going to show it to us, and I'm going to get sad.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
But yeah, loads of cool things this week, and obviously we're going to continue to be drip fed a lot of other stuff as well going forward. So I'm sure, obviously, when Kel's back on, he'll probably give his thoughts again on stuff that we've discussed today. But yeah, all around, just really looking forward to it. The next set just seems to be more. It seems to be more frequent now, doesn't it? It seems to be like we're getting more stuff. And there's also another Armory deck coming out July as well. So those Armory decks are going to be filling out space in between as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they are and what the makeup of those is. Yeah,
I am interested as to what the next one in the series is going to be. What they're deciding is going to be the most important next deck to print.
I reckon it could be.
We'll see if. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I reckon it could be Warrior, because Warrior's like in the limelight now as well. So I reckon it could be like Dorinthia, perhaps. Or just heroes from the heavy hitters that have made quite a lot of impact. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see on that. But
it would be a really nice additional opportunity for them to reprint Glistening Steel Blade.
All right.
give them another crack at it. Like, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, exactly.
Make more copies of this card.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I think that will probably just about do it for this episode today.
Yeah, I'd say so.
We have tons to talk about, and for engagement bait, comment down below. What do you think chi is? How do you make it?
How'd you make it? How'd you do it? What's your thoughts?
What's the recipe, man?
What is the recipe, please?
Yeah. But yeah, once again, this is a fantastic chat. So Az, thank you so much for joining me today.
No worries.
Once again, I was your host for this episode. My name is Bill from the Spike Feeders. You can find me on Twitter and other social medias at BillTSF. You can also find me on YouTube at the Spike Feeders Fab, where we do live edited gameplay content. We do have a Gauntlet series that just wrapped up, but I do believe we have a new one in the works coming out shortly, where I think... I think I can say it. The competitor for the Gauntlet is going to be Dash Database. So you should definitely check that out if you want to see Dash get pitted up against some tough contenders.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's me and my co-host Az. Once again, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm Go Again Gaming AZ on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. That's where all my raw thoughts go. So definitely go and follow me over there if you are on that platform. And then YouTube, just Go Again Gaming, and that's where the League That Means Nothing happens fairly frequently. At the moment, I'd like to say every fortnight or so, the weekly games go up. With different casters, different commentators, and just different matchups all round. But yeah, it's looking to be quite a cool little thing. One of my favourite things about it is the fact that Azalea at the moment is doing very well in the tournament. She's actually, I might be able to say when this video goes live, the Azalea versus Olympia game would have just dropped. So Carlotta did win that one, of course, and she's just absolutely rinsing the opposition on her Azalea deck, so it's good to see. Whereas me, I'm completely the opposite. I've lost all of my games, so it's good to see that we've got at least one good Azalea player in the tournament. I'm just gonna say my matchups were hard, all right, you know. But
I believe you.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you can find me. But apart from that, that's pretty much it for this week, I'd say. Unless there's any Arsenal steps.
I think the only Arsenal step that I have is been playing Helldivers 2 again. Like Az and I were kind of talking about like having time to play video games. I haven't had like the most time to play.
Yeah.
But Helldivers is kind of nice because you have individual missions that last like a maximum of 40 minutes. Usually, sometimes if you're really hauling ass, you can do like in 20, which is like pretty good. That's a nice quick sesh, and then it's just like one and done, and then you can go and do your other things.
Yeah.
And then tonight after this, we're going to myself and my partner and a couple of our friends are going to a place called the Rec Room, which is basically like a grown-up version of an arcade.
Cool.
So so excited to do that. I haven't been there since before the pandemic started. And that time that I went there, you could definitely tell that there hadn't been a health crisis in a long time because there were too many people and it was so packed.
Yeah, imagine so. That seems to be the case, though, doesn't it? Like when everyone could start doing things again, things were just rammed because we hadn't done it in so long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a barcade, is it, where you can get drinks and stuff, that sort of thing?
Yeah. There's like there's a bunch of different types of like arcade machines and just sort of like almost like what you would see in the like lobby of a movie theater, for if that makes sense outside of Canada. There's like different types of arcade machines and whatever, and then there's a bar, and then there's also like a specific sit down like restaurant that I think just does like pub style food.
Yeah.
And then there's also like a bowling alley and axe throwing randomly.
Nice. Yeah.
But it's gonna be a good time. I think it's been a while. But
sounds good.
How about yourself? What you got going on, Az?
Yeah, I mean, I downloaded Dragon's Dogma 2, which we may or may not have spoken about a little bit at the start of this episode, depending on when Kel wants to edit it, because he's still doing that lovely work. But yeah, I just want to try and find a little bit of time to play that, see what that's all about. So apart from that, not really been doing much. The content's taken over a lot of my free time recently, but that being said, this weekend is what we call a bank holiday weekend in the UK. So we get Friday off and Monday off, so it's like a big long extended weekend. For most office related jobs, get bank holiday weekends off. So yeah, that'll be a nice long weekend. and me and the girlfriend are probably going to go out on Bank Holiday Friday to a place called Oxford in the UK. It's quite a nice little place to just sort of walk around. Street food normally there, and lots of restaurants and bars, and little bars and stuff tucked away that you have to try and find, that do cool drinks and cocktails and that. Hopefully the weather's nice. I haven't checked it yet, but we'll see. But looking forward to that extended weekend. It should be good.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's same for us, except for we don't have the Monday off. And the thing that's kind of nice is that I tend to always forget when long weekends are coming up. So it's just always a surprise.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So, yeah, I'll probably forget again before the end of the week.
Yeah.
That, all of a sudden, I just don't have to work Friday. So, I'm looking forward to that too.
Good stuff. Yeah, and I can see that in the background there as well. It's still bright light as well. So the clocks go forward for the UK as well this weekend. So it means we're going to lose an hour of sleep, but it means that the days are going to last longer, which is great, because seasonal depression is a thing. You know, when it's horrible and cold and dark and horrible, it's for me personally, I just feel like I'm a lot happier when there's more light coming in. During the day at least, and then you can then start having barbecues just as it gets a little bit hotter and milder. I think I'm more of a summer bright and nice warm shorts weather, like Barcelona. If I lived in Barcelona, I'd be loving life, because that was just great weather the whole time.
Beautiful every single day.
Every day.
But no, it is really nice. Like, I know when before daylight savings happened, you could see the sun go down as we were doing this.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
My windows would all of a sudden just get darker and darker and darker until it was just black outside.
Yeah.
So it would be the sort of thing where, like, because I do this basically right after work's done, so it'll be like I wake up and it's dark, and then I work, and then slide over to this computer, podcast, and then once I'm done podcast, it's dark again. So it's like,
exactly. Yeah. So nice to have a bit of daylight.
But absolutely. But anyway, that'll do it for us today. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us for another fantastic chat. Unfortunately, Kel wasn't here, but he should be here next time. So for anybody that's missing him, don't worry too much. He'll be back.
He'll be back, baby.
But speaking of next time, we will see you next time. Thanks once again for hanging out, and we'll catch you all in the next episode.
Cheers.